I'm Benjamin B, and this is bbdemos.2 for JHT class. In our first episode, we looked at using Visual Studio Code, and we created our very first GitHub repository, or repo. In this video, we will pick up where we left off, and then demonstrate cloning a GitHub repo onto your local computer, pushing code changes from your local repo to your GitHub repo on the internet, and finally demonstrate a coding workflow using Visual Studio Code and GitHub desktop applications to go from your computer to your GitHub account. Let's get started. At the end of part 1, we had succeeded in creating our first repository, Repo 1, on our own GitHub account, bbdemos. We also have a little cleaning up to do because we had left Visual Studio Code open, and so the first thing we're going to do here is quit Visual Studio Code, so we'll come back to this. And we have our class folder, and we did a little bit of cleanup there too. I renamed the folder mouse red blue, and this is of course where we have our p5js sketch. Okay, so the first big topic is cloning, and that refers to making a copy of your GitHub repo onto your Mac and creating a local repo by means of GitHub desktop application. Let's see what that means in practice. We want to synchronize the repo that we have on the web over here with our local computer. To do this, we're going to need to use a new piece of software, GitHub Desktop. And we're going to use that to synchronize between our computer and our GitHub account on the net. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is download it for Apple Silicon. We're going to unzip it. What we always do with an application is we drag it into our applications folder. I also like to drag the application up, and I will put it on the sidebar, and I will put it right below Visual Studio Code because the two of these guys are going to work together. I will launch GitHub Desktop. Is it okay to open? Yes. It says let's get started, so add a repository to GitHub Desktop to start collaborating. Now we've just created a repository, so we can clone a repository from the internet. Let's do that. And we're going to sign in to github.com where we have the repository. Can continue with the browser. I'm happy to do that. It already found my repository, bbdemos repo 1. So let's choose it. You want to be very careful about the local path. You want to make sure that you put it in the right place. That seems like a really good solution for me. Right now we don't have anything in our class folder except for the mouse red blue. So let's say, yeah, let's clone it. GitHub Desktop has created a clone of our repository locally here on our class folder, Repo 1. It's telling us right now that there have been no local changes and so on. So we now have Repo 1 here, and we have Repo 1 here. Okay, so the next big topic is pushing, and that refers to making changes to your local repo and recording those changes on your GitHub repo using the GitHub Desktop application. Let's see what that means in practice. This is a pretty boring repository, so what we're going to do is we're going to change the local guy here. We're going to put inside the mouse red blue. If we now go to GitHub Desktop, it says there's been 6 changes made to the local repository. Those have not happened on the internet yet. Now, for technical reasons, this one change here we would like to ignore because it's a Macintosh desktop file. We're just going to ignore this file and add it to .gitignore, which is a list of files ignored on GitHub. So we'll just ignore this file. And then we'd like all 5 of these, and so what we're going to say is added mouse red blue index, p5js libraries, the sketch, and the style files added to our repo. And if we like these changes, and I think we do, we're going to commit to them. Once you've committed to it, you have to do a second step, one local commit waiting to be pushed to GitHub. And that's what we're going to do. And push it means that we're going to move it from our local computer to the internet. So let's push the origin. So it has now pushed it, and if we go to here and we simply refresh the page, we now have the mouse red blue files in our repo 1 on the internet. So that's what GitHub Desktop has done for us, is to notice the changes that were in the local folder and allow us to push them to the internet, so they are now synchronized. Now, the usual workflow that we're going to use moving forward is going to be to use Visual Studio Code. So we'll open it here. We're going to go to our class folder and we're going to go to repo 1. And we now have mouse red blue located in repo 1. And we can now start changing the code of our sketch.js and then use GitHub Desktop to push those changes to our GitHub account on the internet. So let's try this. So the last big topic is the coding workflow. Writing your code in Visual Studio Code, saving those changes to your local repo, and then using GitHub Desktop to reproduce those changes in your GitHub repo. Let's see what that means practically. I've rearranged the screen a little bit. I've got the Visual Studio Code here, my class folder here, which is my local stuff, GitHub Desktop here, the application, and I've got the repository on GitHub on the web all the way to the right. And the idea now is we're going to go from left to right. So our sketches here, we can see by pushing port 5500 that we can go live a version of our original sketch. Let's modify that sketch. So I have pasted here a modification. If I save that modification, I can see that this sketch now says version 2 on it. Notice that in the GitHub Desktop, we've got these changes that are in green here. If we change this as well, added version 2 text, if we save that, there's a green line here that says added version 2 text. If we get rid of a line, line 2, and we save it, then here it will show that we deleted something in red. If we're happy with this new version, what we can do is describe it, added text, and we can say version 2 added in middle. And so if we like these changes, which are one deletion and several additions, we can say, okay, commit to main. And once we've done commit to main and described the changes, we do a push to origin. And now if we go back to our code here and look at the sketch.js, we see that the changes are now on the internet on our GitHub account, namely line 1 here and this text here, 1718. So that is the normal workflow that we're going to work from. Is we're going to do coding on Visual Studio Code, which will then be saved at the same time in our local clone of the repo. Those changes will be reflected in GitHub Desktop, and if we describe them and commit to them and then push, those changes will appear in our GitHub Repo 1. So that's it. That's the end of part 2. All right, I can't believe that I made it. It's time to say au revoir.